endure for a while. The more you think about it, the more angry. India ultimately did not swallow this breath. On June 23, 2025, the Indian military media, Indian Defence Research Wing, website published an article saying that in that year, May the 7th outbreak of air war on the Indian border, the Indian Air Force downed Pakistani military aircraft. According to the Indian media, the downed military aircraft, including 6 fighter jets, 2 reconnaissance aircraft, as well as at least 10 drones. The results can be said to be brilliant to the extreme. Moreover, the Indian media also claimed that among the 6 warplanes shot down by India, there are also J-10CE and Dragon block warplanes exported by China to Pakistan. Considering the previous, the French side has officials to CNN revealed that in France sold to India's 36 Rafale warplanes, there are indeed warplanes were shot down records. This revelation caused a heated discussion of public opinion around the world. But after the discussion about the truth of this incident, almost everyone believes that India is most likely to give their own pride, because the Indian side has never come up with conclusive evidence to prove their so-called war results. In this regard, the Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Air Force said last month that the reason why India did not acquire the wreckage of the Pakistani warplane was that the Pakistani warplane was intercepted when it tried to enter Indian airspace. The Indian military is relying on a series of intelligence information such as radar tracking signals, intercepted communications and other information to determine that they have shot down the Pakistani military aircraft. Such a claim, at first glance, does seem to have some merit, because of the details of the post-war exposure. In the longest human air war after World War II, Indian and Pakistani warplanes did not leave their own territories, and the two sides even have about 160 kilometers apart to engage in firefighting records, in full compliance with the process of over-the-horizon air war. In such a process, since the Pakistani warplanes have been in their own territory activities, then even if they were shot down by India, but also likely to crash in the scope of their own national boundaries, the Indian side is indeed also difficult to find the wreckage of Pakistan. It is worth noting, however, that due to the same difficulties, Pakistan should also be as difficult as India to prove their own combat results. But despite this, Pakistan has produced a number of strong evidence to prove that it shot down the Indian warplane, including even the radar lock, missile launch and target disappearance of the whole process of recording. At the same time, Pakistan released an intercepted Rafale fighter jet formation call recording. From the content of the recording, the Indian Army formation commander asked the call sign, Gozilla 3, fighter position, but the fighter did not respond in time. Immediately afterward, another fighter in the formation reported an explosion at the side. This is strong confirmation that the Gozilla 3 was successfully shot down. Of course, one could argue that this evidence doesn't mean anything. Radar tracks, for example, do show the presence and movement of the target, but they do not directly prove that the target was shot down, because it is entirely possible that this was due to tactical evasion, electronic jamming or other reasons, which does not mean anything. For example, in the 2019 Indo-Pakistani air war, India had misjudged the shooting down of a Pakistani F-16 based on the erroneous inference that the radar signal had disappeared. The authenticity and integrity of the intercepted communication information is even more difficult to guarantee, and it is entirely possible that it was maliciously edited or forged in order to fabricate the results of the battle. Even the Indian side is claiming that it is through the above two means to confirm the shooting down of Pakistani warplanes. So Pakistan's evidence must be real and reliable. Facts have proved to be reliable, and very reliable, because in addition to the previous two proofs, Pakistan also has a trump card, called the wreckage. In fact, in the India-Pakistan 5/7 air war after the end of the part of the Indian netizens on the internet published their own discovery of the wreckage of the warplanes. They originally thought that these were Pakistani warplanes shot down by India, and hastily posted them on the internet to celebrate with champagne. The wreckage turned out to be IAF Rafales, Mirage 2000s, MiG-29S and Su-30 MKIs, in stark contrast to the Pakistani side, where no wreckage has been found, which is a huge indication of the problem. And to take a step back, even if the wreckage had not been publicized, the relevant evidence published by Pakistan is far more reliable than that of the Indian side. First, the data chain evidence provided by Pakistan not only contains radar lock and missile launch records, but also involves the cross-validation of multiple platforms, and the timestamps are highly consistent with the air war process. Secondly, in the Rafale call recordings shown by Pakistan, there is an obvious time difference and emotional fluctuation between the Indian commander's emergency call and the explosion report, which is in line with the psychological reaction of pilots in the real battlefield environment. In contrast, the Indian media's so-called downing of the J-10CE and the Dragon block has never provided key evidence and has never been convincing. Coupled with the Pakistani downing of Indian warplanes said by a number of countries' endorsement and India in order to justify their own, not only in the chain of evidence is full of holes, and even go so far as to pull together allies, stand, but instead exposed the essence of the authorities in New Delhi weak heart. Based on this situation, why do the Indians try their best to fabricate and advocate their victory? Perhaps their starting point is quite similar to the win learning trend on the internet nowadays. Winning is an internet buzzword, the connotation of which is that it will lead any topic to the logical track of others are at a disadvantage, their own advantages, and therefore their own victory. It carefully constructs a so-called victory narrative by fictionalizing hierarchies, selectively highlighting dominant dimensions, and manipulating evaluation weights. Simply put, it can be defined as, I know I'm losing, but as long as I believe I'm the victor, then even if I lose, it's still a win. In a sense, however, the win learning narrative, while having the aspect of mental triumph, is a kind of psychological support for the weak, who are eager to shape the mentality of the strong, and is of great help, like a crutch for the handicapped, helping them find psychological support and temporarily relieving the pressure brought by their own vulnerability. For a country like India, where national identity is weak due to the intensification of ethnic conflicts and the wide gap between the rich and the poor in society, how to shape the consensus of, we are all Indians, really needs to be consolidated with one victory narrative after another to strengthen national confidence and increase national identity. This is why India will go out of its way to insist that it shot down the Pakistani warplane. The fundamental reason, although such a statement is very cute, but for India, may be a choice of last resort.